All right, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Platt from the Philadelphia Citizen.
I'm Roxanne Patel-Shapalavi, also from the Philadelphia Citizen. Nice to see you.
So, a couple of housekeeping points before we get this party started. First of all, thank you all for coming out for this exercise in local democracy. It's more than an exercise. It's a fire drill. And just a note about what the Philadelphia Citizen is. If you don't know, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan media organization that uses solutions journalism and the most old-fashioned kind of social networking, actually coming together to in person, live, to talk about events that could move our ideas, that can move our city forward. Civic engagement is not liking something on Facebook. It's actually about getting off your ass. And so that's what we're all about. And like our city, right? The birthplace of American democracy. And in keeping with that, the idea of our Ultimate Job interview series, and some of you may have joined us when we did the mayoral Ultimate Job interviews and we did Attorney General Ultimate Job interviews, is to go forward with the metaphor that this is like a job interview and you guys are the employers. So we get a panel of subject matter experts or people experienced in the art of hiring, and we have candidates, job applicants, come before them and have an in-depth conversation on the qualities that are critical to these jobs. And we've had candidates agree to come back for one-year performance reviews, like Cheryl Parker did in her job interview. So we're still trying to nail that down. Along those lines, we will have one candidate tonight for district attorney who we'll get to. We invited District Attorney Larry Krasner, who declined to join us a few days later, which we're very disappointed about, but we're going to hold the invitation out to him for the rest of the campaign. Give us the word, and we'll all reconvene back here as soon as he musters the strength to be a job applicant in this metaphor. So here's
He's the only candidate who has ever actually declined.
Yes. I don't know maybe it was a scheduling issue.
We don't know. So I just want to thank our partners on this project, Every Voice, Every Vote by the Lenfest Institute, 6ABC, Spotlight PA, and Fittler Club. And then I'd like to take a minute to introduce our interviewers for the evening. Over here behind Larry is Marcel Pratt, former city solicitor and current managing partner at Ballard Spar. Next to him is Alexandra McMaster, former Montgomery County ADA and currently a partner at Laffey, Bucci, DeAndrea, Reich, and Ryan. It's a lot of names. And from 6ABC, Christy Alito.
And, sorry, I jumped out of the way there. So we're going to get this party started, and let's begin with bringing our job applicant to the stage. Former municipal court judge Pat Dugan, who is also a Iraqi war vet. Do you want to say something?
And sorry, I forgot to mention, you all, if anybody at the front, you maybe got a pink index card on which you can write down questions for Judge Dugan. And then we'll have a couple of people on staff will come around and collect them so that Chrissy can ask the questions at the end of the conversation.
All right, let's let the smart grilling begin.
Welcome, Judge Dugan.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here. I have to get used to all these lights and cameras, but thanks for doing this.
All right. I just want to start by saying I'm Christy Alito with Channel 6. Very excited to be here. Very excited that we're able to moderate tonight's event. being up here with both Marcel and Alex, and obviously Judge Dugan, to do this job interview style set of questions. Obviously, a lot of these are questions that I'm sure all of you guys have here in the audience. We know that there's an important date around the corner that we're inching our way closer to, May 20th. And that is when all of you will cast your ballots to decide who is going to be the party nominee for the district attorney's race. So I'm going to start off with first question. It's a little bit of a softball question, but why? You know, you've had a successful career as a judge. Why do you want to leave that post and come on the other side of the bench?
For the sake of Philadelphia. That's the bottom line. So for 17 years, I was a judge, and I absolutely love being a Philadelphia Municipal Court judge. It was a fantastic job. I had blessings when I would have defendants tell me, Judge, thank you for saving my life, with some of the holistic type of approach to criminal justice that I did, whether it was in Veterans Court, when I helped out in drug treatment court, or mental health court. I'd love that feeling that I could get from defendants as well as victims and witnesses who appreciated my style of compassion and empathy, but fairness as well. But for the last 7 years, frankly, what I've seen coming out of the district attorney's office appalled me enough that I went home and told my wife, I'm quitting a very good job at this age, great retirement, great benefits, and I said, I'm walking away from that because no one else is going to step up and try to right the wrongs that have been coming out of the district attorney's office. The withdrawal rate, the lack of preparation, the lack of training, the low conviction rates, not communicating with witnesses. I hear it time and time again. And some of this stuff is starting to come out. Some attorneys who've left the office have written articles about how the office it's an echo chamber. People aren't being trained. There's no mentorship. Now, there are still some fine people that are working there, but I saw this day in and day out in court, and I was very frustrated by it. And as a judge, we're supposed to be, we're supposed to play the middle. We're supposed to be the referee. But when one side has no idea what they're doing, it's just terrible for our city. Victims, witnesses are not getting their day in court, and frankly, neither are the defendants. We have to have accountability. But I also believe in second chances. That's what I did when I was on the bench. I led our bench in expungements. I was part of safe surrender, where people who have bench warrants, we would go out to churches like Enon Tabernacle, and people could come into a church and come in and turn themselves in without going into custody. So I did things like that. I went into the prisons during COVID. During COVID, I was the president judge in municipal court. Remember, folks, when the world stopped? It just completely stopped. People were stuck in jail. No idea when their hearings were going to be. We couldn't get them transported to the CJC. I went into the prisons. My only protection was a mask. I went into those prisons because I felt those men and women needed to have their day in court sooner rather than later. So we set up a system where, via TVs, Zoom, all that good stuff, witnesses could be at a different location and we could pipe in their testimony. So I was in the prisons to handle these cases, to help these men and women get out. These are the things that I was doing as a judge. And again, I could look myself in the mirror every day. I loved what I was doing. I used to go to Graterford Prison. SCI Phoenix is what it's called now. I would get in a van with some of our defendants and drive them up to Graterford to go behind bars to talk to lifers, so that these men in our programs could talk to people who are in jail for life, so that they wouldn't be their cellmates. So these are some of the things that I did. But I also feel that when people break the law, we got to look at second chances, but people have to be held accountable. When the gun conviction rate is so low now, these young men are running around our city just creating mayhem, killing each other, killing innocent kids, because these cases are not being prosecuted properly. We can't give somebody a chance 4 times with a gun. When we get them the first time, that's the time that we have to intervene and try to see if we can help that young person. But we can't give them 3 or 4 chances with that. We have to stop the gun violence. And part of it is that the district attorneys come in prepared, know what they're doing. And I saw day in and day out that they weren't prepared. So the long story about this is I know we don't feel safe in our neighborhoods. People don't feel safe sitting on their steps. They don't feel safe going into the driveway behind their homes. They don't feel safe sending their children to a corner store. They don't feel safe sending their kids to the playground. They don't feel safe sending a kid on SEPTA anymore. I rode SEPTA as a kid. I was 8, 9 years old going up and down the Frankfurt L riding a trolley car. Nobody feels safe to let their kids do that now. That's not safer. It's certainly not freer. Somebody had to step up. So that's why I stepped down and decided to take this challenge on.
One of the things you mentioned just recently was the safety issue. Aside from this weekend with the shootings that happened, if you look at the police department's numbers on their website, murders are down, shootings are down. So what would you do differently?
I would partner more with Mayor Parker and Commissioner Bethel, which I believe their strategies have a big part in the numbers declining. Unfortunately, part of the reason why some of these numbers have declined, because the typical folks who are involved in gun violence are young men of color between the ages of 16 and 28, and they've done a pretty damn good job of shooting each other to death. I saw it every day in a courtroom that I sat in, homicide prelim. And almost every day, it was a young black male sitting at a defense table. It was a couple reluctant witnesses, generally speaking, men of color, who were sometimes in custody, sometimes just very reluctant witnesses. And in the body bag, generally speaking, was a young man of color. They've done a pretty good job of killing each other, and that's terrible to say that. But the statistics show you that that's what occurs over the years. But in the last 7 years, this year is declining, and geez, with the weather turning, I hope it continues to decline, because each and every one of them is a human being, an empty seat at the Thanksgiving table. We've had over 3,000 murders since the current district attorney took office. Over 10,000 people have been shot. So 3,000 KIAs and 10,000 wounded in action by gunfire in the city. I'm glad they're declining, but why weren't they declining sooner if Mr. Krasner has all these answers to bring them down?
You also mentioned that COVID was a big issue with the prison system. We all know that during 2020, there was a lot of political unrest. COVID was an issue. People were out of work. People didn't have jobs. There was a lot of uncertainty. And the city, like a lot of other major cities across the country, were having their own issues with crime and murders. Could you attribute some of that to the pandemic? And not specifically to Larry Krasner?
Yes, of course there were many other issues involved. But as the chief law enforcement officer, you have to react to it. We should prevent it, then intervene, and then enforce. So I just feel that enforcement that's really the main job of the chief law enforcement officer. I'm not talking about being heavy-handed on every crime. COVID, society, these guns on the street, sometimes it's parenting, sometimes there's mental health. All kinds of issues in society cause these issues, no doubt about it. But as the chief law enforcement officer in the city of Philadelphia, it is your job to try to keep us safe from those bad actors who continue to do it. Also, during COVID, this guy who, some people say, I am an old paratrooper, but, I look like this tough, mean detective. During COVID, I was also the president judge of Philadelphia Municipal Court. And anybody ever hear of the eviction diversion program? Judge Dugan's the one who signed that order to make it happen. $300 million came into to the landlords, and 46,000 Philadelphia families were not evicted during COVID. So while I'm saying we need to enforce the law, I'm also this person who knows it's got to be a parallel. You can do both. We could be smarter at these things. Enforcement, second chances, restorative justice, help people. These are the kind of things that I want to do. But yes, there are so many factors that come into play about why crime rates go up. We got to stop poverty. This, what we had before up here about all these young people who go through our school system who don't know how to read. Judge Russell, over at 1801 Vine for years, the first thing that he would do when a defendant, juveniles, he would say, give them that book there. He would make everybody else leave the room. He didn't want to embarrass the kid. He said, now, read this paragraph. And so many of these young kids couldn't read to him. So that's part of the problem. We have to start at a much earlier age. By the time we have them in court, it's way too late. They already shot somebody. They already have a body on them. It's way too late. We have to do it much sooner as a society.
I want to piggyback off something that you said.
Yes, sir.
So we just talked about how violent crime, especially, the numbers are trending downward. I mean, if you look at homicides year to date, they're down 29% compared to last year. If you look at shooting incidents, they're down about 22% compared to last year. And the numbers get even bigger if you compare us to 2023. I heard you give some credit to Commissioner Bethel and Mayor Parker, but you left the DA, the current DA, out of that equation. So do you think DA Krasner has done anything right, or do you think the credit really belongs to the mayor and the police commissioner?
So I do know for a fact that Larry really doesn't cooperate, doesn't play well in the sandbox. I saw it as the president judge for 5 years. We had many closed-door meetings with all the power people in Philadelphia, folks from the community, the mayor, city council, the public defender, other judges, probation officer, the police commissioner, and we would sit around and talk about issues like gun violence. We talk about the epidemic of drugs in our city, the fentanyl, all kinds of issues, and we would try to come to some sort of consensus. We would try to talk through the issues, and it seemed like Larry was always the one who would not go along with it. Recently at a forum, so it's one of those kind of debate styles, someone asked us about the public safety office that the Mayor Parker started, and she actually appointed a former prosecutor, Adam Geer, which I'm sure you're very familiar with Adam. And Larry pretty much said, I don't work for the mayor. And my suggestion was, shouldn't we be cooperating? Shouldn't the office be cooperating with the mayor, the director of public safety, they have some strategies, and Commissioner Bethel, who came out of retirement because of his well-known approach to criminal justice and policing. So they're coming in with these. Mayor Parker said we got to get a little bit tougher on stuff. Commissioner Bethel is saying we got to get smarter and tougher as well. And I can tell you that Larry has not been cooperating with them. So can I give him credit for anything? Let me think on that, seriously.
So according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, about 260 prosecutors out of the 340 prosecutors have left the DA's office during Krasner's time as DA. Similar to Krasner's first run for DA, you come into this without prosecutorial experience, as I understand it. What, in your experience, do you think will make you more effective at running a prosecutor's office and ensuring that the best work is being done and that turnover rate goes down so there's institutional knowledge in that office?
So first of all, I will admit that I am never the smartest person in the room. It has to be collaborative. I was elected as the president judge of Philadelphia Municipal Court by my peers. So the fellow judges decided Pat Dugan should be the leader for 5 years. So as the leader of Philadelphia Municipal Court, I was in charge of 3 divisions: civil, traffic, and criminal. Hundreds of thousands of cases came through there, over 300 employees, over $10 million budget, 3 buildings. So I ran that. I was basically a wartime president. We had a computer incursion. We had COVID. We had civil unrest. I was the president judge during that. So I have those leadership skills, but I do know that I will surround myself. Is David Cohen here, by the way? I need my David Cohen is what I need. I can honestly tell you that. If those young people who don't know, Ed Rendell, God bless him, mayor, governor, very successful, but one of the people that was key to his success was David Cohen, was his right-hand person. So I will be looking for a David Cohen. As a military guy, if I'm elected, yes, I'll be the general, but I need good sergeants, I need good lieutenants, I need good colonels, and I need good privates. The retention at the district attorney's office, that's like 77% of them leave. It used to be that the DAs would stay and make a career, and then reluctantly some of them would leave to go out and make good money because they were some of our best trial attorneys that come out into the city of Philadelphia. So I would want to start looking at how we hire these young assistant district attorneys. And the way I would change it is, instead of going all over the country trying to take folks from these best, quote, best law schools around, I'm going to focus back to the local schools. Temple, Drexel, Widener, Penn, Villanova, Rutgers, Camden, and any other law school in this area, because they have been invested. And I'm not saying I'm not going to welcome these other attorneys to apply from these other schools. The best and brightest are welcome, but we got some pretty good best and brightest folks coming out of law schools right here, and most of them already know that Broad Street is called Broad Street and not 14th Street. How many times I hear that in court over the years? That's what we hear, and that's great. It's okay for people to come in here and help the city, but we need to turn the office around. The first thing I'm going to do is let the staff know, those folks who are doing the grunt work behind the scenes, that their jobs will be secured. I am not going to follow what Larry did by going in and firing all the institutional knowledge. The attorneys that are there, my message is going to be very clear to them. I need you to be a level-headed prosecutor. If you can do that, you have a job. And by that, we're going to enforce the law, we're going to prosecute, but let's do all these other restorative, rehabilitative type justice programs. I want people that's going to buy in that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. The hiring process, and I apologize for continuing, just again, judges keep going on sometimes when they say stop, but I will do a hiring process that's year-round. I won't just wait till people graduate. We need to have a hiring process full year so that we just don't have that one small window to hire people. We have to do it year-round for investigators, victims advocates, which are very important to have in the office as well, and attorneys. So I want it year-round, and I want to figure out how we can retain those folks. If somebody's leaving us, we have to have a very serious exit interview, bring in a team, figure out what we could do to make it better.
I want to pivot for a second. The district attorney's post is a political position. Oftentimes, DAs are called upon to take on political positions or stances. Are there times when politics might influence your decision, for example, sanctuary cities?
Politics are not going to play in anything that I do. I can tell you, if I win this election, I am not going to run that office to make sure I get reelected in 4 years. Sanctuary city is something that, frankly, that is the mayor's call. And if the mayor's saying it's a sanctuary city, then to me it's a sanctuary city. That's the mayor's call. The folks that are making this noise all over the country, they're not the people who are in charge of Philadelphia.
I want to get a sense of your priorities. So I want you to imagine that it's day one of your administration. You're in the DA's office. What are the first 3 things that you're going to do?
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all the attorneys together, and I'm going to pull out the oath of office that every assistant district attorney takes, and we're going to swear it again. Because one of the things that I've tried to, when I talk to new attorneys, I've always tried to let them know that it's very important that when you swear that oath to be a lawyer, when you swear that oath to be, and I talked to the judges as they came in, when you swear the oath to be a judge, that it is your oath. That oath does not belong to your supervisor. It doesn't belong to anybody else. So that's the first thing that I want to do on day one, is that we're going to swear that oath again, and I'm going to make sure they understand that this is how you have to live your life here. Because it's about upholding the Constitution, but it's also about no falsehoods. It's about fidelity. We need to have integrity. That's the other thing that I'm going to emphasize in the district attorney's office. We cannot cheat. We cannot cheat. We are district attorneys of Philadelphia. We cannot hold evidence. We cannot use corruption to convict. That is not what justice is. Winning is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do justice. And I want to reiterate that to each and every attorney, that we are not going to be the office that a judge orders all of us to take 12 hours of community legal service with an emphasis on candor to the court. That has recently happened. We are not going to be that office. So we're going to re-swear the oath, we're going to have integrity, and we're going to have a parallel method to what we're going to do in our office, and that's we're going to enforce the law, but we're also going to do it smartly with restorative, diversion programs, holistic type of approach, and I want my DAs to have buy-in on that. If they don't have buy-in, then I guess they might look for a different kind of job.
Is there any common ground between you and DA Krasner? I mean, you mentioned some things that you want to change, but are there things that you believe he's put into place that are working and things that you would keep?
So I love the idea of the conviction integrity unit. I really do. No one who is innocent should be in jail. So all of us in the criminal justice system must act to get those innocent people out of jail. We cannot have that. We cannot tolerate that. So the Innocence Projects, getting the conviction integrity unit, if you were convicted and there's corruption being used, somebody cheated, the district attorneys cheated, we have to correct that wrong. But when we're correcting that wrong, we must make sure that the conviction integrity unit isn't now doing similar actions that the previous regimes were accused of. And by that I mean judges finding that the current district attorney's office has been withholding boxes and boxes of evidence when these cases are being reviewed. We cannot do that. I will put that program on steroids. I will bring in other attorneys. I will partner with other groups such as the Innocence Project, our defense bar, and work together to see these folks that were convicted unjustly, that they are set free. But there must be evidentiary hearings. There must be a fairness to it. So I will do that. I'm glad that that program was started. I just think we could do it much better.
It's my understanding that a part of your platform has a large emphasis on diversionary programs and community-based programs, specifically Dawn's Court and Veterans Court. Can you explain why going back to those programs that I understand were not utilized during Krasner's time as DA so far as much as it had been before that, if at all? Can you explain why you would want to bring those back and how that would assist in progressing the city forward?
Sure. So I just want to correct one thing that Larry had said the other day in one of these forums. He said he invited me to come to the CJC on Thursdays so that I could see that Veterans Court was still active. And yes, it is. Philadelphia Municipal Court is still running a Veterans Court. The problem is that the numbers have gone down tremendously. And I would like to think that the numbers have gone down tremendously because We've done such a great job of keeping veterans from committing crimes. And it's the same thing with Dawn's Court. But we're not. What's happening is the veterans are not coming in, they're not being charged, so they're never coming into court. And what we were doing in Veterans Court was we were bringing them in, connecting them with their benefits, helping them go back to college, reuniting with their family, getting them substance abuse treatment, getting them mental health treatment, services for their PTSD. We were just holistically, whatever the crime was, we looked at them as a person. How can we help them become the best citizens again that they were? And it was working, and we were graduating up to 100 men and women every year. Last year, it was close to 10. So they're just not coming into the system anymore, again, which I wish they were going somewhere else when they're up there laying on Kensington Avenue, nodding, committing crimes of violence, domestic violence because of their temper, because of some of the things that they come home with from war. And the ladies and the men out there on the street, trapped sex workers, it's terrible where they're at, the stage of their life that they're trapped in when they're out there on these avenues, frankly, running up and down, and this is in the bars all the time, hollering $10. Most of them are addicted to some drugs. Most of them are abused. They're trafficked. They're victims. They're big-time victims. And damn it, I wish society would take care of them better than we have. But at Dawn's Court, a program that was started by former President Judge Marcia Neifeld, some other mentors of mine, Judge Lydia Kirkland. I have so much respect for them. But what they did in that program was astounding. For a couple of years, it was like 481 of those ladies came through the program. They'd counted 16 drug-free births. Do you know what it's like to have a baby addicted on opioids? I do. Because my wife and I went to Temple Hospital a couple of years ago, and we fostered a child who was born addicted to opioids. It was a friend of the family. They had a daughter with some drug issues, and we took that baby in. It's a tremendous burden on that child to even survive. So these were some of the things that they were helping in Dawn's Court. When Judge Neifeld retired, they brought in all these graduates from Dawn's Court, and there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom, including this old Irish paratrooper. These ladies came in, and there's a transcript on this, and they talked about how, Judge, thank you for saving my life. I now have my child back. My husband and I are back together. I have had a job at a nonprofit. It's amazing the turnaround. And it was 77% of the women that came through that program were a success, where they're off the street, off of drugs, and are now productive citizens once again, as opposed to these nameless folks up on Kensington Avenue or Torresdale Avenue who are just being constantly abused. We also had a program for the Johns, these clowns that are going up and taking advantage of these ladies and victimizing them again. We had a program for them. We used to when they got arrested, and they used to arrest them a couple hundred a year, it's down to 0. It's not a crime anymore in Philadelphia. I guess they think it's Las Vegas or Amsterdam. But these men we made come in on Saturday morning, watch a 3-hour film that basically showed these men that these women are human beings. They're your sisters, they're your cousins, they're your mothers, they're your daughters. And they didn't come back. They paid $250. They had to watch this 3-hour film, and we didn't see somebody come back for a second time. These were some of the programs that we did that worked. I wish society could do it before the criminal justice system had to get involved. So yes, I want to do this. I want to be a partner with the courts and put these programs basically on steroids.
So then what programs would you do to help teens here in the city before they have to get to a court?
Oh, geez, we need to start that at birth. We really do. We need to help the parents. Sometimes the children who wind up being the folks that come into courts, it's because the parents don't have the proper skills. So we need to make sure that we're starting the parents off. We need to make sure in schools that the kids are learning discipline and programs of nonviolence. How can you avoid being violent? How can you avoid getting caught up into the streets? We need mentors.
Would you partner with some of the nonprofits that are in this? There's so many.
Thank you for that.
do so many great
Oh,
things.
yes, absolutely. And yes, all my talking, and I didn't mention community-based programs. That is the key. We have to work in every neighborhood. We have to talk to the community. As a district attorney, what is it that we can do to help your community? What is it that we can help your young people? Do we need more programs after school, reading, tutoring? When I was at the prep, one of the things that I went to St. Joe's Prep, Men for Others. One of the things that they made us do, it was mandatory when we first got there, we had to tutor the kids that lived around 17th and Girard. So we had to come in on Saturdays to tutor the local kids to help them read. And I got more out of it than that little kid did. So we have to partner with the community to figure out how we can stop this violence before it gets out of hand with that individual.
Have you connected with any nonprofits while you've been on the campaign?
Everywhere I go, there's nonprofits. Every community meeting, every ward meeting that I go to, they're all there. And I'm like, let's have that conversation May 20th at 9 o'clock at night.
Okay. Before we open it up to the audience who have questions, are there any missed opportunities in your public career that haunt you?
In my public career. So I've been a judge. I don't think I can say that. I mean, no, I don't have any thoughts of something haunting me as a judge. No, I don't. Personal stuff, but we're not going to go there, are we?
We don't need to get into that.
I mean, how about this one? I wore chocolate chip socks tonight under the glaring lights, but my grandkids buy me these character socks, so I wear them.
I know that we have questions from the audience. Does somebody want to bring those cards up? Lovely. Thank you. Okay. During the Krasner administration, the city created the Office of Public Safety and the Office of the Victim Advocate. Is that an acknowledgement that the district attorney's office was failing to meet its obligations to Philadelphians, and how would you collaborate with those offices?
Short answer is yes. That is a true sign of that. I will cooperate with them every single day because I believe in collaboration. We need to do that. The victims' advocates are some of the most important people in the criminal justice system. Time and time again, I saw victims not coming to court. And that was due to, frankly, perhaps the lack of training, a disconnect. I don't know what it was between the office and the victims, but it's at a very high rate. And it's very important that we have that cooperation. And I believe recently that, yes, there's a robust hiring process. I'm glad to see that. We need more training. But if we're not connecting with our victims, then the criminal justice system is not being run fairly. People deserve, God forbid, if your family member is murdered, you have every right to be in the courtroom. But if nobody's calling you up to tell you the case for the person who is accused of murdering your loved one is next week, and calling you up to tell you that, communication. Or don't come because it's been continued. It'll be in another month. We have to do that for the victims. And if we're not, we're failing the system. And that has occurred time and time again. And the strategy coming out of Adam Gear's office, off of Mayor Parker's, her campaign, and now her policies, it's something that we all have to work together within the criminal justice system. And I will be an equal partner for both those programs.
Yeah, Judge, I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier. It was just on my mind. You said that Philadelphia is a sanctuary city because Mayor Parker says it is, but you're an independently elected official, right? And so I want to know your thoughts on sanctuary cities. Do you think that sanctuary cities are safer? I think that's the rationale behind why some cities choose to do that. And also, would you cooperate with ICE?
The second part of the question is a resounding no. Frankly, the district attorney's office, when someone is arrested and there are issues with whether or not they have the proper documentation, that's pretty much should happen before they come into the court system. That is a police function. So will I cooperate with ICE? As much as I possibly cannot cooperate with them, I will. It depends on what kind of warrants they have. If it's an administrative warrant, they don't have rights to do certain things. They don't have a right to come in your home. If they have a judicial warrant, they have a right to come in. I don't like that. Do I like sanctuary cities? Absolutely. I think that is the American way, that we have to help those who are less needs, who came into our country. We need to help them. And yes, it's a shame that we even needed to have them. But we had them in Philadelphia. Now we're getting executive orders saying you can't have them. But no, I truly support that.
So speaking of police and warrants, I don't think it's a secret here that the police force and Krasner's administration did not have a good working relationship. What are your thoughts on how the police force should work with DAs? And based on how the elections have gone for Krasner, and what could be perceived as the approval of the relationship between, or lack of relationship between, the DA's office and the Philadelphia police force, what will you do to improve the relations between the public and their view of the relationship between the police and the DA's office?
So in reference to the DA and the police department, the majority of the cases that come into a court, there's going to be a police officer who has to testify. So there has to be a working relationship between the district attorney's office and the Philadelphia Police Department. That is a fact. Unfortunately, for the last 7 years, it's definitely had issues. I think, frankly, with Commissioner Bethel coming in and with the change at the FOP with Roosevelt Poplar, I believe there's a lot more cooperation, which I'm very glad to see, because you need the police officers to come in and testify, because they're the first person on almost every scene. In terms of dealing with the public, I feel like we've started to turn a corner. And Mayor Parker is very high on community policing. Chief Bethel is very high on training police officers. Frankly, we expect police officers to be superheroes, supermen and superwomen. We expect them to understand, what do you do with domestic violence? What do you do when somebody's in the throes of a mental health issue? What do you do when somebody's shooting? What do you do when there's a fire? What do you do when it's just somebody calling because they want to talk to you? We expect them to be able to do everything and hold them accountable. We have to hold them accountable, but we have to train them better. I think it's finally, recently, started to train our police officers on how to handle these mental health issues, how to partner with these agencies to come along as a partner dealing with somebody in the throes of this, how to deal with somebody in addiction. So I think the training that's going on, I just hope we start seeing more and more positive interaction from the police officer and our citizens. I'm hopeful that it keeps getting better and better. We certainly still have a long way to go. We need to also bring in the community to talk about what's going on in your neighborhood and talk to us about the policing that is going on in your neighborhood to see if there's other things that we could do to make it better for all of us. Because, frankly, those police officers sign up for the job to serve and protect our citizens, and we need to hold them to that, but we need to train them much better.
Here's another question from the audience. What is the DA's role in combating Philadelphia corruption?
Follow the evidence. So, again, after I win this election, I am not going to be a DA just looking to get reelected. I'm not going to run my office so that I could be reelected. If there's corruption and there's evidence, I frankly don't care who you are. You could be the Pope. And if the evidence shows that you have committed a crime, we're going to take a hard look at it and investigate it. I'm not going to walk away because somebody has a title or somebody's been elected. I don't think that's fair because, you know, we don't do that for everybody else in the system. If you happen to be an elected official or you're involved in corruption and you have this, you have all kinds of money, businesses and whatnot, no, follow the evidence, do the investigation.
I want to go back to a question that an answer that you gave to a question you just asked. I know that the DA, the newly elected DA, always speaks to the cadets. The police cadets? Yes, when they're getting trained. What is the first thing that you say to them when they're in cadet school?
So I haven't spoken to the cadets in any formal type of setting, but the first thing I'm going to say is thank you for being part of this. Thank you for considering someday, because most of those cadets are thinking about a career as a police officer. And I think that's very admirable considering some of the things that this nation is going through these last, frankly, centuries. But so it's admirable that these young people think that they would like to be a police officer someday. So I want to congratulate them for that and keep going and stay in school and come make our city better if you decide to become a police officer.
Judge, I want to ask you about a case that was in the news recently. I'm sure you're familiar with exoneree Anthony Wright. In 1993, Mr. Wright was found guilty of murdering Louise Talley, and many years later, DNA evidence pointed to another perpetrator. He was retried by DA Seth Williams. A jury acquitted him in 2016, ending the 25 years that he spent in prison for a crime he didn't commit. I'm sure you also have been following that. DA Krasner had brought charges against 3 of the detectives involved in that case, saying that they lied under oath in the 2016 retrial. And just last week, a jury acquitted one of the detectives on all counts, but found that 2 other detectives were guilty on some, but not all of the counts. Do you think that prosecution was justified, and would you have brought it yourself if you were DA?
So, yes, I did look at it. I certainly didn't get in and study it, but if the evidence is there, I'm going to prosecute. I'm going to prosecute. The jury has spoken. They said their verdict. If the evidence shows that the Pope or a police officer or our neighbors did something that should be prosecuted, then they need to be prosecuted.
What would you say to the Philadelphia voter who doesn't feel safe in their own city but feels ambivalent towards voting in this election? And what would you do to bring them to the voting? What do you intend on doing to get the vote, to turn out the vote?
Should I get up and do a tap dance to get them out? The apathy of voters is one of our biggest problems. And anybody hear the expression, elections have consequences? If you don't feel safe in the city of Philadelphia, you must come out and vote. You must come out and vote because that's what's that is what happens. We get 18% turnout. Come on, it's 1.5 million people. We need more than 18% of the people to make a difference. People have to come out and vote. If you really care about safety, your family, the kids going to the playground, you must come out and vote. If you're not happy, you don't feel safe, then I'm asking you to come out and vote. And yes, vote for Pat Dugan because we could do it much smarter and make it safer, but we all must come out and vote. So I apologize. Voting, there's only been a small percentage of people in the history of the world that had the ability to vote. I happened to be in Iraq when those folks got their first opportunity to vote. And what they would do is they would go in and vote, and they would put their finger in a pink inkwell and come out showing that they voted. It wasn't pink, it was purple. I'm colorblind. But it was purple ink that they would put it in. Those people stood in line under the threats of homicide and suicide bombers, and some of them died to go vote. And it's just appalling that here in the United States of America, too many people stay home. Folks, come out and vote. And you know what? It's democracy. Yes, you can vote for the other guy because that's how it works. But we must come out and vote. Bring your neighbors, folks. Bring your family. They got to come out and vote.
Another question from the audience. Please tell us your views and or experience with reformative justice.
Reformative justice.
Reformative justice.
So that's pretty much what these diversion programs that I've been talking about. I believe in that so much. We need to restore people. We need to turn people's lives around. In the CJC, the Criminal Justice Center, in the basement, there's something called the Resource Hub. During COVID, this guy, as president judge, started a resource hub. Anybody in the building that comes in our building could go down there and seek an appointment to find mental health, to turn benefits on, to discuss 6 or 7 other issues that you may have. You could be a staff member, you could be a defendant, you could be a victim, you could be a police officer, you could be a judge, you could be an attorney. You could go down there and ask for some help. It was something that I started because we need to make people whole. We need to help them find jobs. People come out of jail, they need a job. So we just need to continue to try to help people who get caught up in the criminal justice system. But bad actors must be held accountable.
You talked earlier about how you would manage the office and also how you would hire. What place does diversity, equity, and inclusion have in a Dugan administration? I know it's in the media these days for a number of different reasons, but what's your position on DEI?
Isn't it outlawed now? And that's a joke, folks. That's horrible. So my office, after I win this, is going to look like Philadelphia. I'm going to be very aggressive to make sure that the citizenry of Philadelphia, it looks like the people that work in my office across the board. I was proud that I was able to do a lot of that when I was the president judge. We actually started a DEI office. I was there at hiring a nationally acclaimed DEI officer, Shaka White. We implemented all kinds of programs to help people understand cultural differences, mandatory training for judges, staff members. It'll be similar to what I'm going to do as the district attorney. And, you know, pretty much I'm going to thumb my nose at what's coming out of Washington about whether or not we can have that. I do understand one of the implications is coming. Are they going to follow through on pulling funding out? Frankly, if they pull funding out, then we won't call it DEI. I'll call it something else.
So you would not bend the knee if outside pressure targets your office for having DEI?
The only person I'm going to bend the knee to is Jesus Christ the Lord. I am not bending my knee for policies like that. It's funny that you used the phrase bend a knee. I think Justice Bromson, one of our Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices, basically just said recently that the district attorney does nothing but bend a knee. Honest, that's an opinion. You can Google that, folks. But no, I'm not bending a knee. Not at all. Want to talk to me about the birds? Diehard Eagles fan. First time I ran an election for judge. My campaign slogan was, I hate the Cowboys. It was. And I was already a sitting judge for 2 years. I went to Iraq, Afghanistan, was a child advocate. And you know what people said they voted me for? Because I hated the Cowboys. They didn't care about anything else I did, so I'm sorry.
No, that's a very important point to make.
Hey,
So
go Birds.
Go Birds. Any key people that you'd like to bring into your administration that you can share with the audience
Did
here?
you say any key people?
Any key people that could help you lead the office?
So, no, I'm not going to divulge any names, but Delaware County, Chester County, Bucks County, Montgomery County, beware. I'm coming after some of those attorneys and some of those high-powered prosecutors who left the district attorney's office and are now making bank. Look out. I see you out there, guy. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I want to bring back some folks who can help me train the district attorney's office properly. I want to raid some of these district attorney's office nearby. Oh, and by the way, I will become the district attorney's office of Philadelphia will once again become a member of the District Attorneys Association of Pennsylvania. One of the first things that Larry did was he got out of that organization. Now listen, we can have differences of opinion, but why don't we sit around and talk about it? What are you afraid of? So what? They have different ideas than you. You want to do it this way. Let's talk about it. We're going to become members of that association again, and I'm going to talk to them about some leadership.
The DA's office currently has 6 ADAs detailed to the U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute violent crimes cases in federal court. Will you continue that practice?
Frankly, I'm hoping that we don't need the federal government, that we don't need the federal prosecutor to prosecute crimes that we could do right here in the district attorney's office. Just real quick, Act 40, where they came out, and yeah, there was a lot of politics involved in that, but it was passed because of the violence on SEPTA. So I don't know why we need a special prosecutor. The district attorney should be prosecuting the people on SEPTA. The district attorney should be prosecuting people without us having to send a case to the federal government. I have to look into whether or not what their actual assignments are down there, but I know that there are some fantastic attorneys down there that I would love to be presenting murders in front of a jury, so maybe we could win a couple.
Okay, I think we are good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's sit. Judge, sit.
Sorry, I did
Sit.
have,
You're not done yet. We have some more grilling to do.
I did have one question.
Okay.
Which I saw you trying to cover it up, but I'm curious about your calf tattoo.
I specifically did not ask that question. I
Yeah.
my the card and
I
I
am
was
interested in
not
it.
doing that.
Is there a story there?
Actually, there is a story about my tattoo on my right calf. So it's what we call a soldier's cross. I might as well show it to you. Great. Great. So it's a soldier's cross. It's a helmet, a rifle, and a pair of boots. So when you're downrange and you lose a fellow soldier, it used to be you would bury him there, and that's how you would mark the grave. But in the modern wars that we had, when somebody gets killed and we bring them back to the base, we have a service, and we put their boots, their helmet, and their rifle with their dog tags on it, and then we have a service for them. So it's a sign of respect to remember the men and women that I served with who didn't come home. So that's what that is.
You know, Judge, we have just a few seconds left, but as a card-carrying coward that I am, you served in the military and then later decided to go back in. Can you explain? That is so foreign to me that in your 40s you got off the couch. Can you explain? Just talk to us a bit about the service.
9/11 happened, and I was a veteran, and I went back in to serve our nation so that those young men and women who were going could have an old salty veteran with them.
Well put.
Thank you.
We can't thank you all enough, and this great panel and our job applicant tonight. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. That was great. Thank you.